In a forest, a group of ogres are attacked by vicious goblins during heavy rainfall. The ogre's leader fights fiercely with his sword, but the goblins have the upper hand because of their numbers. Even after all his comrades have been killed, the ogre's leader remains standing, but the goblins surround him and drive him to the edge of a cliff. Jumping off the cliff, the ogre continues fighting, while some goblins are fighting him with swords and others are shooting arrows. When he finally defeats all of the goblins, the ogre is exhausted. All of a sudden, a man who looks like a ninja appears. The ninja is disappointed with his subordinate goblin's defeat and decides to take the ogre on himself. The ogre tells him he's just a mercenary, but he has a village and friends he must protect, so he refuses to stop. Mockingly, the ninja points out that his friends are all dead already, making the ogre furious. The ogre charges at the ninja, but the ninja dodges his desperate attacks and stabs him in his stomach, making him spit out blood. The ninja then kicks the ogre away, but the ogre makes one last charge at his enemy, using all of his remaining strength. Miraculously, he manages to knock the ninja's sword out of his hands, which surprises him. However, using clones of himself he created, the ninja quickly recovers his sword. Two clones appear behind the ogre and stab him with two swords at once, finally defeating him. With his last breath, the ogre begs anyone listening to tell his village that the ninja is coming to attack and then loses consciousness. Nearby, two hooded figures hear him and contact someone through a crystal ball to ask them what to do. Once they get their instructions, they take the ogre with them. The next morning, the ogre wakes up in bed with his wounds dressed. A girl is watching over him and she introduces herself as Tawa, the queen of the kingdom of Regia where they currently are. The ogre thanks Tawa for her help, but she tells him there is no need. She calls him Hyro, which surprises him since he didn't have a name before. The night before, a doctor called Chikuan operated on the ogre, whose name is now Hyro. Even if Chikuan thought there was no saving him, Tawa thought otherwise. She took the ogre's hand and announced that she names him Hyro. As soon as she spoke those words, the ogre glowed with light and transformed into a less wild-looking version of himself. Along with him, his comrades lying in beds around him all emitted spheres of light, which combined into a single sphere and enter Hyro's body. Having named the ogre, Tawa was exhausted. In the present, Tawa tells Hyro that he was nearly dead, which is why named him to make him evolve, hoping that would increase his chance of survival. With sad eyes, she tells him she didn't have enough life force to name his comrades too. Having heard this, Hyro looks around the room but doesn't see any of his comrades, just their bloody clothes. However, he thanks Tawa anyway, understanding that she did all she can. Tawa reveals that Hyro was asleep for 10 whole days, and upon hearing this, Hyro immediately jumps out of his bed. Startling the queen and the doctors, he runs outside as fast as he can. Outside, Hyro sees a man descending on a flying dragon. Apologizing to the man, he jumps on the dragon and flies into the sky. After flying for a while, Hyro lands in the area where his village is, but sees that it has been completely demolished. Shocked, he walks around but finds nothing and no one. The houses are charred, the fields destroyed, and there is nobody left. Remembering his friends and how happily he spent his days in the beautiful village, Hyro falls to his knees. Screaming into the sky, he curses the orcs who have done this. 4 days later, the Queen of Regia is still waiting for Hyro to come back. Her ministers think they've misjudged Hyro, but the queen suddenly sees him returning with the dragon. Somewhere else, Gobta the Goblin and Gabiru the Dragonute are running through the forests somewhere. It turns out that they're training the Hakaru the Ogre, who quickly finds and defeats them with a wooden staff. Somewhere else, Geld the Orc leader and his orcs are building a railroad when Geld sees a dragon in the sky. In the forest, another ogre called Sui visits Hakaru, Gobta, and Gabiru, telling them that Geld is under attack. Hearing this, they hurry towards him. In his mansion, Rimuru the Slime and Cheyenne, his ogre secretary, talk, and Shuna the ogre soon joins them, bringing them something to eat and drink. They drink tea in perfect peace until Cheyenne interrupts the silence. She tells Rimuru she has baked some cookies for him, and he is terrified already. When Cheyenne reveals the supposed cookies and Rimuru sees how hideous they look, he tries running away. Shuna manages to excuse herself, leaving Rimuru to Cheyenne, who continues to happily offer him cookies. While Rimuru is struggling to get away from the cookies, he senses something strange from the direction of the forest. Using it as an excuse to send Cheyenne away, he tells her to go check out what's happening. At that moment, Sui appears and tells him that Geld is being attacked. In the forest, it turns out that Geld's attacker is Hyro, who arrived with 2 people from the kingdom of Regia. The orc and the ogre fight using their full power, and they seem to be equally powerful. Hyro accuses Geld and the other orcs of attacking Tempest after they destroyed his village and swears he will get his revenge. Growing angrier, Hyro starts fighting more fiercely, forcing Geld to go on the defensive. Hiro uses a skill called Ogre Flame, but Geld manages to somewhat protect himself from it using a shield he conjured. In a brief moment when they stop fighting, Geld says he realized Hiro is an ogre, which causes Hiro to go berserk. Feeling responsible for destroying his village, Geld drops his sword and shield and prepares to die for his past sins. However, it's not his time to die yet because Suka, the humanoid dragonoo, appears and distracts Hiro. Suka attacks Hiro using throwing knives, but he throws her aside with ease and starts running toward Geld again. This time, Benimaru the ogre stops him and immediately recognizes Hiro as his old friend. The two ogres are happy to see each other and the fighting stops. Talking to Benimaru, Hiro doesn't understand why he's friends with the orcs. However, Benimaru quickly convinces him that the orcs have become their allies. Trusting Benimaru, Hiro accepts that orcs are no longer the ogre's enemies and apologizes to Geld. Geld says that the orcs destroying the ogre's village can never be forgiven, so he apologizes too. Suddenly, the rest of the ogres appear, and it turns out Hiro was everyone's childhood friend. They have a joyful reunion, and they're all happy to see each other alive and well. That night in Rimuru City, Benimaru introduces Hiro to Rimuru as his friend. Rimuru and the ogres drink together and talk to Hiro about old times. They consider Hiro their older brother, and his broken horn is a wound he received protecting Benimaru. Benimaru and Hiro always used to fight, and Benimaru admits that Hiro always won. Since he was the strongest in their village, one day Hiro left with 10 other ogres to work as a mercenary. They found employment in a nation called Estave, which was Clayman's domain, who was Rimuru's old enemy. When he heard that the orcs attacked his village, Hiro deserted Clayman's army, but won't say what happened after that. Ever since Queen Tawa saved him from certain death and named him, Hiro became her humble servant. Shuna is impressed, since naming a monster uses up so much energy that it risks the life of the person who's naming it. Hiro explains that the Kingdom of Regia is a small kingdom that used to make its living mining gold. However, some time ago they used up almost all the gold deposits, and now the nation isn't as prosperous as it used to be. Even in such hard times, Tawa sacrifices herself to keep her kingdom and her people alive. We see her channeling magic to purify the lake in the center of her kingdom. Every time she does that, a part of her body turns violet. Hiro found out from the kingdom's ministers that Tawa is using a powerful magic tiara to purify the lake from the toxins that come from the gold mines and protect the kingdom's people. The tiara has been passed down Regia's royal family, and it enables the wearer to use incredibly powerful magic. However, whenever someone uses it, they absorb a kind of cursed poison into their body. Because of this, Tawa's health is deteriorating more and more. Doctors have tried many medicines to neutralize the toxins from the mining, but none of them worked. Even though the kingdom has no other choice but to mine the little gold that's left to buy food for its citizens, the queen's ministers fear that the queen is going to die soon if she continues neutralizing the toxins with her magic. Having heard all this, Hiro suggested they try cultivating the great forest of Jura, where Rimuru's nation called Tempest lies. There's a potential to produce a lot of food by cultivating the land and hunting the animals, but the ministers are scared of the dragon Veldora, who's protecting the forest. The surrounding nations have also agreed to leave the forest alone out of fear of Veldora. Suddenly, a man arrived and reported that the kingdom of Falmouth has invaded the great forest of Jura, and its army was completely wiped out by Tempest forces. Hearing this, the ministers are even more terrified of Tempest. However, Hiro has heard that the nation's leader, Rimuru, is reasonable and wants to talk to him about cultivating the forest. Since Rimuru accepts all types of monsters, the ministers agree to send Hiro as a messenger to Tempest. In the present, Hiro explains all this to Rimuru and apologizes once more for attacking Geld in a fit of rage. Rimuru accepts his apology and reveals he has become a demon lord after he defeated Clayman and received the approval of the other demon lords. He introduces the slacker who's reading manga in the corner as the legendary dragon Veldora, and Hiro is surprised. Being the guardian of the forest of Jura, Veldora tells Hiro it's fine if the kingdom of Raja enters and cultivates a part of the forest as long as they don't cause any trouble. Suddenly, Milim the demon lord arrives, angry she wasn't invited to the drinking party. When everyone starts bickering amongst each other, Hiro interrupts them and tells Rimuru he has a formal request to make of the nation of Tempest. Since the kingdom of Regia is in a very bad state at the moment, he begs Rimuru to help him save it. All the other ogres join him and also beg Rimuru, but Rimuru tells them all there's no need to beg. He simply agrees to help and decides to visit the kingdom of Raja and see how the queen is doing. Hiro bows deeply and thanks him. The next day, Rimuru, riding the Tempest Wolf Ranga, heads toward Raja together with Hiro, Shuna, Cheyenne, and Benimaru. After a while, they see the kingdom, which is a beautiful country located inside of a deep valley. While they're flying, Shine offers one of Hairo's companions some of the food she made, but the smell of it makes their dragon fall out of the sky. Seeing them falling through the air, Rimuru uses Ringa to help the dragon right itself in the air. While they're flying through a waterfall, Rimuru notices something strange about the water. When they arrive, Hairo introduces the guests from Tempest to Raja's ministers. The ministers welcome Rimuru respectfully, and when they hear that Veldora gave permission to Raja to cultivate the forests of Jura, they're overjoyed. However, they're still worried because they need to educate and organize an entire workforce for that. As soon as the ministers say that, Ramirez the Demon Lord appears together with her attendants, Trainee the Dryad and Beretta the Golem. The ministers are impressed and honored to see Trainee, but they don't recognize Ramirez, which makes her mad. However, they recognize her when Rimuru tells them that she is a Demon Lord and the Queen of Spirits. Trainee explains that having heard their conversation, she wants to teach and help the Kingdom of Raja to properly cultivate the forest of Jura. When Chikun enters and tells everyone that Tawa has awakened, Rimuru follows him to meet her. In her room, Tawa is bedridden and seems to be in a bad state. Hairo tells her Rimuru can heal her and Tawa lets Rimuru try, trusting Hairo's judgment. Rimuru appraises Tawa's Taira but finds out that only the person who placed the curse on it can remove it. However, he also finds out that if Tawa stops using the Taira, she should gradually recover. Raffle, the voice who can tell him anything about the world, tells Rimuru he can help her recover by giving her some honey produced in Tempest. Rimuru gives some to Tawa's maid who feeds it to her. Immediately, Tawa feels a little better and thanks Rimuru. However, she doesn't want to stop using the Taira to help the kingdom. Then, Rimuru tells her she doesn't have to worry because he can do it instead of her. He takes everyone out to the lake and immediately notices how poisoned it is. Tawa tells him that if the lake isn't purified from time to time, the very air will become poisoned. Rimuru remembers that he appraised the water when he passed through a waterfall and found out that the poison in it isn't found in nature. He thinks there's something wrong and enters the water. He announces that the poison in the lake didn't come from the mines. Standing in the middle of the lake, Rimuru raises his arms and divides the lake in two. In the middle of it, he sees a glowing magic circle. Using his skill Beelzebub, which allows him to absorb anything into his body, he sucks up all the water in the lake. After purifying it inside of his body, he unleashes the perfectly clean water, restoring the lake. That night, the entire kingdom of Raja celebrates together with Rimuru and the people from Tempest. Rimuru thinks the magic circle he saw at the bottom of the lake is ancient and has been made by the same person who put the cursed poison on Tawa's Taira. Apparently, there's a legend that says the Taira was a gift from a goddess to Raja's queen, but nobody knows anything else about it. Joining him, Hairo thanks Rimuru from the bottom of his heart and tells him he will repay the favor. Rimuru tells him he wants to continue being friends with the kingdom of Raja and Hiro is thankful. In her room, Tawa looks strangely sad. Suddenly, Rimuru knocks on her door, startling her. She once again thanks him for everything, but Rimuru notices there's something wrong. Tawa tells him she's jealous of how honest he is toward his subordinates. She reveals that the initial reason she took Hairo in and named him was because she thought he would be useful to her kingdom. She thinks she was selfish, but Rimuru tells her that being calculating isn't bad. He convinces her that Hairo isn't bound to her and he's serving her because he wants to. He tells her she should be more honest about her feelings and Tawa smiles, telling him he's kind. The next day, the kingdom of Raja starts cultivating the forest of Jura. Seeing this, a merchant called Lakua is shocked and surprised. Seeing that the lake has been purified and that the queen has recovered, he is even more shocked. Mobuji the prime minister greets him and Lakua asks him what's going on. While Mobuji is telling him about how Raja improved in the past several days, Lakua seems strangely irritated and angry. It turns out the strange merchant had something to do with the poisoning and he's angry his plans have failed. However, he realizes he can still succeed and decides to try causing a little chaos and tragedy. Sometime later, Diablo, Rimuru's demon secretary, visits him in his mansion. Meanwhile, in the area where the ogre village was, Hairo visits the graves of his friends. He apologizes for letting them die when Benamuro joins him and starts praying. Hairo says he could have protected everyone if he was stronger and a better leader, regretting being unable to protect his comrades. He swears he will give his all next time and protect his new friends. Benamuro tells him he's not alone this time since he has him and Rimuru on his side. Suddenly, a dragon flies overhead and a man from Raja tells them that something has happened to the queen. At the same time, Trini visits Rimuru to tell him that Raja's lake has suddenly become so poisoned that the air became toxic. In order to save her people, Tawa used the magic Taira again and collapsed because the cursed poison started spreading through her body again. The only thing keeping her alive is Rimuru's medicinal honey. Rimuru doesn't understand what's going on. since all the poison should have been removed from the lake when he erased the magic circle. Hearing about the old magic circle, Diablo gets lost in thought. The soldier from Raja tells Hiro and Benimaru that there is an even bigger problem. One of Raja's neighbors has mobilized its army to attack Raja, and everyone is panicking. Having heard about it too, Rimuru thinks the poisoning and Raja's enemies preparing to attack them aren't a coincidence. He starts thinking that the doctor treating Tawa Chikuan isn't really treating her at all. He calls Suian and tells him to go investigate why Raja is being targeted. Meanwhile, in Raja, the soldiers prepare to defend the kingdom. Sometime later, Chikuan tells the ministers that Tawa can't leave her room because she's too sick. Having visited her, Hiro sees her in bed with a high fever. Tawa apologizes to him for being unable to save his friends the day she found him, but Hiro tells her it's not her fault. She tells him he is now free to do what he wants before she falls asleep from exhaustion. Gathering all of Tempest's leaders, Rimuru tells them they should prepare for battle. He trusts Tawa and intends to take Raja's side in the potential war that is about to start. However, Veldora needs to stay in Tempest and protect it while the others are fighting in Raja. Approaching Rimuru, Diablo tells him he has an idea about who created the cursed poison in Tawa's Tyra and the magic circle in the lake. He tells him he is going to go negotiate with the person to see those curses undone. In Raja, Hiro is approached by Lakua, who tells him there's a way to save Tawa's life. Lakua takes him to a room and tells him about a secret ritual that enables the user to transfer souls between bodies. He tells him that if they put Tawa's soul in his body, Tawa could survive, but Hiro's soul would be lost in the process. Hearing this, Hiro agrees to do it, prepared to give his life to Tawa. Lakua is overjoyed and shows him something called a curse orb. He says it can rebuild the body to become stronger than it was before and tells Hiro that if he swallows it, there's a higher chance the soul transferal will be successful. Hiro immediately agrees and swallows the orb. As soon as he does that, his body glows with purple energy and he feels strange. While Hiro is carrying Tawa, Lakua takes them somewhere else. Meanwhile, prepared for battle, Rimuru transports his strongest warriors on top of a building in Raja. They're greeted by Mobuju, the Prime Minister, who tells them that both the Queen and Hiro have disappeared. Meanwhile, Lakua takes Hiro and Tawa to a creepy altar. He tells Hiro to put Tawa onto it, and the altar starts glowing. Outside, Ranga has picked up their scent and is taking Rimuru and the others toward them. Suddenly, Sue reports to Rimuru, telling him the country preparing to attack Raja is after a large gold vein resting beneath the country. However, the people from Raja don't know anything about such a vein, and they think that someone has spread a false rumor. While they're walking, Rimuru tells the ministers to prepare their entire army and promises to help them when their enemies attack. Finally, Ranga finds the room where Hiro and Tawa are. Inside, Tawa wakes up and Lakua tells her what they're doing. However, Tawa doesn't want Hiro to offer his life to save hers and tells him not to do it. She tries getting up, but she's too weak. She begs Hiro not to do it, since his life belongs to him and nobody else. Before she loses consciousness, she tells him she wants him to live on and continue living for her and his comrades. However, Hiro is now even more determined to sacrifice himself for her. Suddenly, Lakua changes his attitude and starts sarcastically applauding Hiro and Tawa's emotional moment. Hiro notices there's something wrong and Lakua shows his true colors. He reveals that the ritual he told Hiro about doesn't exist at all and starts laughing at the both of them. He tells Hiro that he made him swallow the curse orb in order to make the queen use her Tyra's magic once again and finally die. After that, he expects his mistress to praise him. Furious, Hiro takes out his sword and charges towards Lakua, but Lakua activates the curse orb inside of him. Hiro returns into a monster and Lakua tells him things that will make him emotional and angry. He tells him to remember the despair of seeing his village destroyed and his anger at himself that he couldn't do anything about it. Listening to him, Hiro completely loses his reason and starts going berserk, while Lakua is happily cheering him on and laughing happy because he's providing entertainment for his mistress. While the building is shaking from the destruction, Tawa gets hit by some of the falling debris. Wanting to save Hiro, she starts activating her Taira while Luko is happily anticipating her death. However, before she can to that, Rimuru and the others appear. While Shuna raises a magical shield to protect Tawa, Benimaru clashes swords with the mad Hiro. He tries talking to him, but can't reach him and Hiro just pushes him away. Seeing Rimuru, Lakua is furious because he interrupted his plan once again. He runs away with Rimuru and Ranga chasing after him, while Benimaru holds Hiro off. Running through the mine shafts, Ranga and Rimuru catch up to Lakua. Lakua starts shooting balls of energy at them, but Ranga manages to dodge every single one of them. Sue reports to Rimuru that the enemy army is approaching and Rimuru tells his warriors to fight them but try not to kill anyone if they don't have a choice. While all that is happening, Diablo visits a woman called Violet. Just like Diablo, Violet is also an ancient demon, but she doesn't have a name like Diablo has. He asks her if she placed the magic circle in the middle of the lake in the kingdom of Raija, but she says she didn't have anything to do with that. However, Diablo manages to make her admit she has a connection with the kingdom of Raija because that kingdom's royal family is her favorite. A few centuries ago, Violet visited the kingdom of Raija. When the queen of Raija saw her back then, she thought Violet was a goddess and Violet was amused. The queen asked her for the power to save her kingdom, and Violet decided to give her a tiara charged with immense magical power. However, Violet won't give it to the queen for free. Cursing the tiara, she came up with a cruel game. If the queen uses the tiara, a curse poison will affect her body, and that curse will be passed down to her descendants. The greater the queen's wish, the deeper the curse poison will affect her. For the sake of her kingdom and its people, the queen accepted the tiara. Violet then told her that if she kept using the tiara, with time she will be stained with the color of her magic. If that happens, Violet will be able to use the queen's body to manifest herself in the world. If the queen allows that to happen, Violet wins. But if the queen doesn't get fully colored by the magic, the kingdom of Raija wins. When Violet finishes her story, Diablo points out that Violet just wanted to enjoy watching a whole bloodline suffer, but she tells him she couldn't give the queen so much power for free. Looking at Tawa, she thinks that one of her descendants will soon be able to become her host. However, Diablo tells her that he found out something about her. He tells her she wasn't playing the game fairly since she sent one of her subordinates to force Tawa to use the tiara. Hearing this, Violet doesn't say anything but starts throwing things at Diablo. Diablo tells her that if she leaves Raija alone, he won't tell anyone what she has done. However, Violet still won't accept. Getting angry, she transports the two of them into a vast space filled with ruins, and the two start fighting. Flying through the air, Violet attacks Diablo with bolts of violet energy, while Diablo blocks them using his clawed gauntlets. Violet noticed Diablo has become stronger since Rimuru summoned him and gave him a name. While Diablo is distracted, she manages to wrap him in binds of violet-black energy, but Diablo quickly breaks out. Suddenly, Violet starts burning in blue flames, and Diablo points out that the temporary body she made has started to fall apart. At that moment, two of Violet's servant demons appear, stopping Violet from continuing to fight. They report that Lakyo, who turns out to be Violet's subordinate, has started acting on his own. He spread false information about a gold vein and made a neighboring country attack Raija. Since this is going against the contract Violet had with Raija's royal family, she decides to break it off. When Violet tells Diablo she'll go take care of Lakyo and then stop interfering with Raija, Diablo is satisfied. Passing through a magical doorway, Violet travels to Raija. In Raija, Rimuru's friends are fighting off the enemy soldiers. At the same time, Shuna is taking the weakened Tawa out of the crumbling altar room. Nearby, Benimaru continues fighting Hiro, but he can't seem to hurt him at all. Hiro fights savagely, but Benimaru doesn't lose heart. With every clash of their swords or fists, Hiro remembers a little more of Benimaru and their past together. Meanwhile, Rimuru continues to follow Lakyo, but they split apart. While he's gloating about his victory, Lakyo's minecart falls into a lava lake. However, before he can fall too, he grows wings and flies out of the mine shafts. Following him while riding Ranga, Rimuru concludes that Lakyo must be a demon. When Shuna manages to escape from the crumbling building together with Tawa and raises a shield around the two of them, Benimaru and Hiro crash out of the building too. A large piece of debris threatens to fall on Tawa, but Hiro quickly reacts and destroys it. We can see that he's fighting to regain his reason, but he can't do it. Screaming, he starts shooting bolts of fire, destroying everything around him. Benimaru tells Shuna and Tawa to run away, while he chases after Hiro. Catching up with him, the two ogres clash again, while Rimuru and Lakyo fight in the air. Lakyo is joined by Chiku and the Doctor, who reveals himself to be a demon too. While Ranga wipes out Chiku in an instant using a destructive storm, Lakyo turns out to be tougher. He summons a violet sword and charges towards Rimuru. Using his own sword, Rimuru parries the attacks and destroys Lakyo's weapon. When Rimuru points his sword at Lakyo's neck, Lakyo tells him he can't kill him, since his mistress will get angry. At that moment, Violet arrives and scolds Lakyo. Lakyo thought he was helping Violet, but she tells him that she wanted the queens to choose to give themselves to her instead of being forced to do that. She only ordered Lakyo to observe them, not to interfere. Because he ruined her fun, Violet tells him she doesn't need a useless servant like him. Rimuru then tells Lakyo he will kill him, so that he doesn't harm anyone else. Desperate, Lakyo takes a cursed ball and swallows it, going berserk. Pulsating with energy, he announces that he will turn the kingdom and everyone else into ash. He explodes, unleashing an incredible amount of energy, but Rimuru uses Beelzebub and absorbs it all. On the ground, Rimuru's friends defeat all the enemy's soldiers, which turn out to have been possessed by Lakua. Meanwhile, Benimaru and Hiro are still fighting, with no end in sight. Since he can't convince him to get to his senses using words, Benimaru stops holding back his power. Coating his sword in black flame, he cuts Hiro, thinking he's defeated. However, Hiro soon gets back up and jumps toward Benimaru. This time, Tawa gets in between them, making Hiro stop in his tracks. Seeing Tawa, Hiro starts struggling to regain his mind again. Seeing no other solution, he stabs himself in the stomach and pulls out the cursed orb from his body. This seems to work because Hiro reverts to his normal form but collapses to the ground. Benimaru hurries to him and takes him into his arms, happy that he has regained his senses. However, Hiro starts turning to stone and crumbling, which is the price of using the cursed orb. Rimuru arrives too, intending to give Hiro a recovery potion, but Raffle tells him it won't work because the curse is too powerful. Before he dies, Hiro tells the other ogres he has always thought of them as their siblings. He tells Tawa he's happy to have found a master worth serving. When he crumbles into dust, Tawa won't accept it. Invoking her tiara, she wishes that Hiro is alive again and Hiro recovers completely. However, Tawa's tiara crumbles into pieces and Tawa herself starts disappearing. When she's completely gone, Hiro laments the fact that he still couldn't do anything for her, even though she saved his life twice. In a shining void, Tawa's soul meets Violet, who tells her the contract between them has been voided because she allowed her subordinate to interfere. She thanks Tawa for all the entertainment she has provided to her and tells her she'll do her a favor. Suddenly, Tawa resurrects and everyone is surprised. With tears in his eyes, Hiro rushes towards her and hugs her. As morning breaks, Raffle tells Rimuru that the cursed poison has completely disappeared from the Raja Kingdom. Diabolo also comes back and Rimuru tells him he will need to explain everything to him later. That night, the Kingdom of Raja, together with Rimuru's people, has a huge party. Raja's ministers thank Rimuru and ask if there is any way to repay him. When Sylvie reveals that a vein of iron ore has been found in a cave that collapsed during their battle the previous night, Rimuru considers it. Even though iron ore isn't in demand, Rimuru tells the ministers he wants to buy it from Raja. Surprised, the ministers accept, happy that Rimuru wants to invest in their nation. Looking at Hiro and Tawa, Rimuru is happy to finally see them happy together. Tawa thinks about how grateful she is to the goddess who gave Raja's queen the magical tiara, but is prepared to take things into her own hands from then on. When Rimuru gets back to Tempest, he sees the city's surroundings full of craters and some of the citizens injured. It turns out that Milam came to visit and Veldora ended up playing with her a bit, which caused the catastrophe. Angry at Veldora, Rimuru tells him won't get him the latest volumes of his manga for a while. As for Milam, the demon lord Free arrives to pick her up and promises to punish her at home.